All right, diving into a fascinating world today, diseases. You've given us a really interesting mix of material, infectious diseases, those that spread, and the non-infectious kind, plus a deep dive into the immune system, our body's own defense force.
It's fascinating to consider that while we tend to think of infectious and non-infectious diseases as completely separate, there's a lot of interplay between them.
Right, two sides of the same coin almost. Like on the one hand, these sources talking about those classic infectious invaders, bacteria, viruses, fungi, parasites. But then there are the non-infectious diseases, more about genetics, lifestyle choices, those internal factors that can really impact our health.
And what's often overlooked is that many organisms that cause these infectious diseases actually coexist with us all the time. They live on our skin, in our gut, they're just hanging out, not causing any harm most of the time. But when conditions are right, they can become pathogenic, meaning they start causing disease. It's a delicate balance.
Like that one friend who's a blast at a party, but maybe not the best roommate.
An apt analogy. And just like those less than ideal roommates, some of these non-infectious or chronic diseases tend to stick around for a while. They develop slowly and can last a long time, unlike a quick bout of the flu.
Speaking of the flu, let's jump into some examples of these infectious diseases. We have to talk about the common cold and the flu, right? Practically household names when it comes to getting sick.
Indeed. And the sources you've provided actually offer a great comparison between the two. Both are caused by viruses, rhinoviruses for the common cold, and influenza viruses for the flu. And both spread through those pesky respiratory droplets.
Ugh, yes. Someone coughs near you on the bus, and suddenly you're playing Will I Get Sick? Roulette for the next week.
Both can lead to those familiar unpleasant symptoms. Coughing, sneezing, sore throat, congestion. But that's where the similarities end. Influenza can be far more severe than the common cold, sometimes leading to serious complications like pneumonia.
Which is a major reason why getting that flu shot is so important. We have vaccines to help our immune systems fight off those influenza viruses. It can be a real lifesaver, especially for folks who are more vulnerable to complications. Unfortunately, we don't have that luxury with the common cold. It's rest, fluids, and maybe some over-the-counter meds to ease the misery.
Our sources also touch on some other big players in the infectious disease world: COVID-19, malaria, tuberculosis, and HIV/AIDS. Each has its own unique characteristics, modes of transmission, and global impact.
And that brings us to how we talk about disease spread on a larger scale. Endemics, epidemics, and pandemics. It's like the disease version of like local event, regional news, and international headline.
A perfect way to put it. An endemic disease is one that's constantly present within a particular geographic area or population. Malaria is a great example, a constant concern in certain parts of the world. And you could even argue that the common cold is endemic to many populations, given how often it seems to circulate.
Always crashing the party, that common cold. But then we have epidemics, which are like sudden outbreaks, where we see a disease spreading faster and wider than we'd expect.
Exactly. And when an epidemic goes global, crossing continents and impacting a significant portion of the world's population, we call it a pandemic. We all remember the COVID-19 pandemic, but there have been many throughout history. The Spanish flu, the Black Death. These are the ones that really reshape how we think about disease and public health on a global scale. Require international cooperation to get them under control.
Speaking of getting things under control, let's talk about how these diseases actually spread. Our sources lay out a whole web of transmission routes, which can feel a bit overwhelming.
It's true, quite a few ways these pathogens can get around. Let's start with the most direct route, direct contact. This could be anything from touching someone who's sick to kissing, sexual contact, or coming into contact with infected body fluids.
Definitely the get your own drink, don't share
Yeah,
category of disease transmission.
exactly. Then there's indirect contact, where you pick up a pathogen from a contaminated surface. Think doorknobs, elevator buttons, even that pen you borrow from a coworker.
Suddenly, I'm very aware of how many things I touch on a daily basis.
It's eye-opening, isn't it? And then we have those respiratory droplets we talked about earlier, those larger particles that are released when someone coughs or sneezes. They can travel a short distance and infect someone nearby, especially in enclosed spaces.
Which is why good ventilation is so important. It's not just about avoiding the cougher, it's about avoiding the air they just coughed into.
Absolutely. And then we have airborne transmission, which is even sneakier. These are tiny particles that can hang in the air for longer periods and travel greater distances, making them harder to avoid.
Like they're playing a whole other game of transmission tag.
Yeah.
So we've got close encounters, surface contamination, and airborne particles. What other tricks do these pathogens have up their sleeves?
Well, some of them have mastered the art of delegation. They rely on vectors, insects or animals that carry and transmit the pathogen. Mosquitoes are a prime example, spreading diseases like malaria, Zika, and dengue fever.
Talk about an unwelcome travel companion. And last but not least, we have to be mindful of what we eat and drink.
Right. Foodborne and waterborne transmission can occur when we ingest food or water that's been contaminated, often with bacteria or parasites. This is why food safety practices, washing produce, cooking food thoroughly, storing it properly are so crucial, as is access to clean drinking water.
So it's not just about dodging sick people, it's about being mindful of everything we touch, breathe, and consume, like a constant game of avoid the pathogen.
Well said. Now shifting gears a bit, let's delve into the realm of non-infectious diseases, those that arise from internal factors rather than external invaders.
Okay, so if infectious diseases are the outside forces attacking, what are some examples of those internal factors that can lead to non-infectious diseases?
Our sources offer some excellent examples. Heart disease, a leading cause of death worldwide, is a prime example. Now, while there are genetic factors that can increase someone's risk of developing heart disease, it's also heavily influenced by lifestyle choices, things like diet, exercise, smoking, those daily decisions that add up over time.
So it's a combination of nature and nurture in a way. You might have a genetic predisposition, but your lifestyle choices can either exacerbate that risk or help mitigate it.
Precisely. Another category to consider is degenerative diseases. These are conditions where tissues or organs deteriorate over time, often due to aging or genetic factors. Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and arthritis are some common examples.
Those are the ones that often feel like a bit of a mystery, right? We know they happen, we have some understanding of the mechanisms involved, but there's still so much we don't know about how to prevent or cure them.
You're right. There's still a lot to learn about these complex conditions, and research is ongoing. But what we do know is that treatments often focus on managing symptoms, slowing down the progression, and improving quality of life for those affected.
And speaking of things we're still learning about, what about autoimmune diseases? They're kind of like the body's immune system getting its wires crossed, right?
That's a great way to put it. In autoimmune diseases, the immune system, which is normally our protector, mistakenly attacks the body's own cells and tissues, as if they were foreign invaders.
And that can manifest in so many different ways, depending on which tissues are being targeted.
Absolutely. Rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, type 1 diabetes, multiple sclerosis, and inflammatory bowel disease are just a few examples of autoimmune diseases, each with its own set of challenges and treatment approaches.
It's like the immune system is throwing a party and accidentally invited all the wrong guests. Chaos ensues.
A very vivid analogy. Now, let's not forget about metabolic diseases. These are conditions that affect how our bodies process nutrients and regulate energy.
So if our bodies were cars, these would be issues with the engine or fuel system.
An excellent analogy. Diabetes, obesity, and gout are all examples of metabolic diseases. They're often linked to hormonal imbalances or problems with how our bodies use specific nutrients like glucose, which is our primary source of energy.
And these are often the ones where lifestyle interventions, diet, exercise, stress management can play a significant role in managing the condition, right?
You're absolutely right. While there are medications that can help manage the symptoms and complications of metabolic diseases, lifestyle changes are often a cornerstone of treatment.
It's about empowering individuals to take control of their health and make sustainable changes that support their well-being.
Precisely. And speaking of supporting well-being, our sources also delve into the fascinating world of allergies.
Ah, yes, allergies. They always seem a bit counterintuitive to me. Like, here's the immune system, this incredible defense system designed to protect us from harmful invaders, and it's freaking out over pollen.
I understand the sentiment, but it's important to remember that the immune system's primary goal is to identify and neutralize anything it perceives as a threat, even if that threat is actually harmless. In the case of allergies, the immune system overreacts to harmless substances like pollen, dust mites, pet dander, or certain foods,
Wow.
identifying them as dangerous invaders.
And this is where those allergy symptoms come in. Sneezing, runny nose, itchy eyes, skin rashes. It's the immune system waging war on an imaginary enemy.
Exactly. No, in most cases, allergies cause relatively mild discomfort. But in some instances, they can trigger a severe, life-threatening reaction called anaphylaxis.
That's the one where someone might need an EpiPen.
You got it. Anaphylaxis involves a rapid drop in blood pressure, difficulty breathing, and swelling, often of the throat and face. It requires immediate medical attention.
Definitely not a reaction you want to mess with. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Infectious diseases, non-infectious diseases, and even those instances where the immune system seems to have a bit of a hair-trigger response. But to really understand how our bodies fight back against these threats, we need to take a closer look at the immune system itself.
I completely agree. It's a truly remarkable system, incredibly complex and adaptable. It's like having a highly trained army operating within us, constantly on patrol, identifying and neutralizing threats.
Okay, so walk us through it. What are the key players in this inner army, and how do they work together to keep us healthy?
Our sources provide an excellent overview. We can break it down into three main components: white blood cells, lymphoid organs, and antibodies.
Let's start with the white blood cells. Those are the ones we hear about most, right? They're like the frontline soldiers fighting off infections.
Exactly. They're the ones directly engaging with pathogens, engulfing and destroying them, sending out signals to rally other immune cells, and generally keeping things in check. And just like a real army has different types of soldiers, we have different types of white blood cells, each with its own specialized function.
It's like the immune system's version of the Avengers. You've got your hand-to-hand combatants, your strategists, your long-range specialists.
I like that analogy. We have lymphocytes, which are like the intelligence officers of the immune system. They're responsible for recognizing and targeting specific pathogens. Then there are phagocytes, the heavy lifters that engulf and digest invaders. And we can't forget about the granulocytes, which release powerful chemicals that destroy pathogens and help coordinate the immune response.
So it's a real team effort, with each cell playing a crucial role. But what about those lymphoid organs? What's their function in this inner battlefield?
Think of the lymphoid organs as the training grounds, barracks, and strategic command centers for our immune system army. This is where immune cells are produced, mature, and get deployed to fight infections.
So if the white blood cells are the soldiers, these organs are the bases and training facilities that keep the army running smoothly.
Exactly. We have bone marrow, which is like the boot camp where all blood cells, including those crucial lymphocytes, are born. Then there's the thymus, a small gland in the chest where T cells, a type of lymphocyte, go to complete their training and learn how to distinguish between the body's own cells and foreign invaders.
You definitely don't want those T cells getting confused and attacking your own tissues.
Precisely. Then we have the spleen, which acts as a filter for the blood, removing old or damaged red blood cells and trapping pathogens that enter the bloodstream. And finally, there are lymph nodes, those small bean-shaped organs located throughout the body, connected by a network of lymphatic vessels.
Those are the ones that get swollen when you're sick, right? Like little warning flags that a battle is underway.
Exactly. Lymph nodes are like checkpoints where immune cells congregate and strategize. When a pathogen is detected, immune cells in the lymph nodes multiply and launch a targeted attack, often causing the nodes to swell as a result of the increased activity.
It's like the body's way of saying, hey, something's going on here. We're on it.
Exactly. And finally, we have antibodies, those Y-shaped proteins that are custom-made to target specific pathogens.
They're like the immune system's secret weapon, right?
Absolutely. Antibodies are produced by a type of white blood cell called a B cell, and each antibody is specifically designed to bind to a particular antigen on a pathogen, marking it for destruction by other immune cells.
It's like putting a giant target on the pathogen's back. Okay, so we've got our white blood cells, our lymphoid organs, and our antibodies. How did this all come together to actually fight off an infection?
Let's imagine you get a splinter and some pesky bacteria decide to hitch a ride on that tiny piece of wood and enter your body.
Oh no, sounds like trouble.
It could be. But luckily, our immune system is on high alert. The first responders to the scene are often those phagocytes we talked about earlier. They patrol the tissues, looking for anything suspicious.
Kind of like security guards patrolling a museum, making sure no one's trying to steal the precious artifacts.
Exactly. These phagocytes have a remarkable ability to recognize patterns, and those bacteria are displaying some very suspicious patterns, things that signal, not from around here.
It's like they're wearing a big sign that says, I'm a pathogen, come and get me.
Essentially. So those phagocytes will engulf and digest those bacteria, hopefully containing the threat before it can spread.
That's impressive. But what if those first responders aren't enough to handle the situation? What if those bacteria are multiplying faster than the phagocytes can eat them?
That's when the reinforcements are called in. The phagocytes will release chemical signals that act like distress calls, alerting other immune cells to the area.
So it's like they're sending up flares to call for backup.
Exactly. And one of the key types of backup that arrives are those lymphocytes we talked about earlier, specifically T cells and B cells.
Okay, so remind us again what those lymphocytes do.
T cells are like the special forces of the immune system. There are several types, but the main ones we're interested in here are helper T cells and cytotoxic T cells. Helper T cells are like the generals. They direct the immune response, telling other cells where to go and what to do. Cytotoxic T cells, on the other hand, are the assassins. They directly kill infected cells, preventing the pathogen from replicating and spreading further.
So it's a two-pronged attack, directing traffic and taking out key targets. What about the B cells? What's their role in all of this?
B cells are the antibody factories. Remember those Y-shaped proteins that can target specific pathogens?
Oh, right, the ones that act like homing muzzles.
Exactly. B cells are responsible for producing those antibodies. When a B cell encounters an antigen that matches its specific antibody, it activates and starts churning out those antibodies like there's no tomorrow.
It's like the immune system's way of saying, we've seen this enemy before. Time to mass produce the weapon that takes them down.
A very apt analogy. These antibodies then flood the area, binding to the bacteria and marking them for destruction by other immune cells. They can also neutralize the bacteria directly, preventing them from infecting more cells.
Wow, that's amazing. So it's a coordinated effort involving multiple cell types, each with its own specific role to play. But what happens once the threat has been neutralized? Does the immune system just stand down?
Not quite. Remember those memory cells we talked about earlier? They're a key part of what makes our immune system so effective.
Oh, right. Those are the ones that are like, we've defeated this enemy before and we're ready if they ever try anything funny again.
Exactly. After an infection has been cleared, some of those T and B cells differentiate into memory cells. These memory cells stick around for a long time, sometimes even for decades, providing long-term immunity against that specific pathogen.
So it's like having a security detail on high alert for that particular threat, even years later.
Precisely. This is why we often develop lasting immunity after being infected with certain pathogens.
This is also incredible. But I'm curious. With infectious diseases, there's always the risk of transmission. We can catch them from other people, contaminated surfaces, even the air we breathe. But what about those non-infectious diseases? What are some of the key factors that contribute to their development?
That's a great question. And it's often a complex interplay of genetics, lifestyle choices, and environmental factors that influence our susceptibility to non-infectious diseases. Let's start with genetics. We inherit a unique set of genes from our parents, and these genes can influence our risk for developing certain conditions, including heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and even mental health conditions.
So it's like some of us are dealt a hand of cards that might make us more prone to certain health challenges.
Exactly. But it's important to remember that genes are not destiny. Just because you have a gene that's associated with a particular condition doesn't mean you're guaranteed to develop that condition. Our genes interact with our environment and lifestyle choices in complex ways.
So even if you have a genetic predisposition, your lifestyle choices can influence how those genes are expressed and whether or not you actually develop the condition.
Exactly. Which brings us to lifestyle choices. This is a big one, and it encompasses a wide range of factors, including diet, exercise, sleep, stress management, smoking, alcohol consumption, basically all those daily habits and routines that influence our overall health.
So it's not just about what you eat or how much you exercise, it's about the cumulative effect of all those choices over time.
Absolutely. And these choices can have a profound impact on our risk for developing non-infectious diseases.
It's like that old saying, you are what you eat, but in this case, it's more like you are what you do consistently.
A much more accurate statement. And finally, we have environmental factors. These are external factors that can influence our health, and they can be a bit trickier to control because they're not always within our immediate sphere of influence.
So we're talking about things like air and water quality, exposure to toxins, even social determinants of health, like access to healthcare and education levels.
Exactly. These factors can play a significant role in our overall health and our risk for developing certain conditions. For example, air pollution has been linked to respiratory diseases and even heart disease. Exposure to certain chemicals and toxins in our environment has been linked to cancer. And social determinants of health, like poverty, food insecurity, and lack of access to quality health care, can also significantly impact our health outcomes.
It's a reminder that our health is not just determined by what's happening inside our bodies, it's also influenced by our environment and our choices. But it sounds like even with all these factors at play, the immune system is still a pretty incredible defense mechanism.
It absolutely is. It's constantly adapting, learning, and finding new ways to protect us. It's a testament to the incredible complexity and resilience of the human body. It really is a fascinating balance between those internal and external factors. And it highlights how interconnected our health is with the world around us. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's circle back to those lymphoid organs. We were talking about their role as the training grounds and strategic command centers for the immune system.
Right. We covered bone marrow, the thymus, and the spleen. But we didn't get to those lymph nodes, the ones that often sound the alarm when we're getting sick.
Ah, yes. Lymph nodes. Those small bean-shaped organs that are strategically positioned throughout the body, connected by a network of lymphatic vessels. Think of the lymphatic system as a sort of drainage system, collecting fluid that leaks out of blood vessels in our tissues and returning it to the bloodstream.
So it's like the lymphatic system is responsible for keeping things flowing smoothly, making sure fluid doesn't build up in our tissues.
Exactly. But the lymphatic system is more than just a drainage system. It's also a crucial part of our immune defense. Those lymph nodes act like filters, trapping pathogens and other foreign substances that enter the body.
So it's like the lymphatic vessels are the highways, and the lymph nodes are the checkpoints along the way, screening for anything suspicious.
A perfect analogy. Inside those lymph nodes, you have a high concentration of immune cells, lymphocytes, macrophages, dendritic cells, all those key players we've been discussing. When a pathogen is detected in the lymphatic fluid, these immune cells spring into action.
So it's like the lymph node becomes a war room, where the immune cells gather to strategize and launch their attack.
Precisely. And that's often why lymph nodes become swollen and tender when we're fighting off an infection. It's a sign that the immune system is working hard, multiplying those immune cells and coordinating a defense.
It's like the body's way of sending reinforcements to the battlefront. So we've got these amazing internal defense mechanisms, white blood cells, lymphoid organs, antibodies, all working together to protect us from those microscopic invaders. But sometimes, even with this incredible system in place, we still get sick. Why is that? I mean, if the immune system is so great, why don't we just win every battle against pathogens?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the truth is, it's complicated. There are many factors that can influence how effectively our immune system can fight off infections. And some of them are within our control, while others are not.
Okay, so let's break it down. What are some of those factors that can tip the scales in favor of the pathogens, making us more susceptible to getting sick?
Well, one major factor is simply the sheer diversity and adaptability of pathogens themselves. Viruses, bacteria, parasites, they're constantly evolving, finding new ways to evade our immune system's defenses.
It's like an ongoing arms race between our immune system and the microbial world.
Exactly. Another factor is the overall health and resilience of our own immune system, which, as we've touched upon, can be influenced by a variety of factors, including our genetics, our age, and importantly, our lifestyle choices.
So it's not just about having a strong or weak immune system. It's about how well it's supported by our overall health and well-being.
Precisely. For example, chronic stress can suppress the immune system, making us more vulnerable to infections.
That makes sense. When we're constantly stressed, our bodies are in fight or flight mode, pumping out cortisol and adrenaline, which can take a toll on our immune defenses.
Exactly. Sleep deprivation can have a similar effect, as can poor nutrition. Our immune system needs a steady supply of essential nutrients to function optimally.
It's like trying to run a high-performance car on low-quality fuel. It's not going to perform at its best.
A perfect analogy. And then there are certain medical conditions and treatments that can suppress the immune system, making individuals more susceptible to infections. This is often the case with chemotherapy, for example, which is designed to kill cancer cells but can also damage healthy immune cells in the process.
So it's a delicate balance, trying to target the harmful cells while minimizing collateral damage to the immune system.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's age. As we get older, our immune system naturally weakens, which is why older adults are generally more susceptible to infections and often experience more severe symptoms.
It's like the immune system's defenses start to wear down a bit over time, which makes sense. Our bodies are constantly bombarded with potential threats throughout our lives.
Precisely. And then there are external factors that can increase our risk of exposure to pathogens, such as traveling to areas with endemic diseases or engaging in behaviors that increase our risk of coming into contact with infected individuals or contaminated surfaces.
It's a reminder that our health is not just determined by what's happening inside our bodies. It's also influenced by our environment and our choices. But it sounds like even with all these factors at play, the immune system is still a pretty incredible defense mechanism.
It absolutely is. It's constantly adapting, learning, and finding new ways to protect us. It's a testament to the incredible complexity and resilience of the human body.
So we've explored the fascinating world of diseases, both the infectious and non-infectious kind, and we've delved into the intricate workings of the immune system, our body's remarkable defense force. But I'm curious, with all this knowledge in hand, what are some practical things we can do to support our immune systems and minimize our risk of getting sick?
That's a fantastic question, and it's one that's particularly relevant given everything we've discussed today. The good news is that there are many simple yet powerful things we can incorporate into our daily lives to bolster our immune defenses and support our overall health and well-being.
Okay, so give us the rundown. What are your top tips for keeping those immune systems humming along?
Well, first and foremost, we have to talk about nutrition. Our immune system relies on a steady supply of essential nutrients to function optimally.
So it's not just about eating our vegetables to please our parents. It's about providing our immune cells with the building blocks they need to do their jobs effectively.
Exactly. A diet rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean protein, and healthy fats provides a wide array of vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and other beneficial compounds that support immune function.
Okay, so we're talking about a balanced, colorful diet, the kind of thing we see on those healthy eating posters.
Precisely. And it's not just about what we eat, but also how much we eat. Maintaining a healthy weight is crucial for immune function. Obesity, for example, is linked to chronic inflammation, which can impair the immune response.
So it's about finding that sweet spot, eating enough to nourish our bodies, but not overdoing it to the point where we're putting extra stress on our systems.
Exactly. And speaking of stress, stress management is another crucial aspect of immune support.
It's amazing how interconnected all of this is, isn't it? It's not just about targeting one specific thing. It's about supporting overall well-being, which has a ripple effect on our immune defenses.
Absolutely. When we're chronically stressed, our bodies release hormones like cortisol, which can suppress the immune response over time. Finding healthy ways to manage stress, whether it's exercise, meditation, spending time in nature, or connecting with loved ones, can make a world of difference.
So it's not just about avoiding stress altogether. It's about finding healthy coping mechanisms to manage the inevitable stressors of life.
Precisely. And while we're on the topic of healthy habits, we can't forget about exercise.
Right. I think we all know that exercise is good for us, but how does it actually benefit our immune system?
Well, for starters, regular physical activity helps to improve circulation, which allows those immune cells to move more freely throughout the body, patrolling for invaders and responding to threats more efficiently.
It's like giving those immune cells a faster mode of transportation.
Exactly. Exercise also helps to reduce inflammation, which, as we've discussed, can impair immune function. And let's not forget about the mood-boosting benefits of exercise.
Right. Exercise is a natural stress reliever, and we just talked about how chronic stress can suppress the immune system. So it's like a double whammy of immune support, reducing stress and improving circulation and immune cell activity.
Precisely. And speaking of things that are crucial for our overall health and immune function, we have to talk about sleep.
Sleep, the thing we all wish we got more of. But seriously, why is sleep so important for our immune system?
Well, when we sleep, our bodies go into repair and regeneration mode. This is when our immune system is hard at work, producing and releasing proteins called cytokines, which help to fight off infection and inflammation.
So while we're sleeping, our immune system is working overtime.
Exactly. And when we don't get enough sleep, our bodies produce less of these crucial cytokines, making us more susceptible to infections.
It's like our immune system is running on fumes when we're sleep deprived.
A perfect analogy. Aim for 7-8 hours of quality sleep each night to give your immune system the time it needs to recharge and do its job effectively.
Okay, so we've covered nutrition, stress management, exercise, and sleep. What else can we do to support our immune systems? Are there any other lifestyle factors we should be thinking about?
Absolutely. One often overlooked factor is hydration.
Right. We all know we should be drinking more water, but how does staying hydrated actually benefit our immune system?
Well, water is essential for just about every bodily function, including the transportation of nutrients, the removal of waste products, and the regulation of body temperature. And when it comes to the immune system, water plays a key role in keeping those mucous membranes moist.
And those mucous membranes, those are the linings of our respiratory system, our digestive system. They're like the front lines of our immune defense, right?
Exactly. They act as a physical barrier, trapping pathogens and preventing them from entering our bloodstream. And when those membranes are properly hydrated, they're better able to do their job effectively.
So dehydration can actually make us more susceptible to infections.
Absolutely. It's like having cracks in your castle walls. It makes it easier for invaders to sneak through. Aim to drink plenty of water throughout the day, especially when you're sick or physically active.
Okay, so we're talking about eating a balanced diet, managing stress, getting enough exercise and sleep, and staying hydrated. All those things we know we should be doing, but sometimes need a little extra motivation to prioritize.
It's true. It can feel overwhelming at times, but even small, sustainable changes in these areas can make a big difference in the long run. And let's not forget about one of the most powerful tools we have in our arsenal when it comes to preventing infectious diseases, vaccines.
Right. We touched on this earlier, but it's worth emphasizing. Vaccines are like giving our immune systems a sneak peek at a potential pathogen, allowing them to develop antibodies and memory cells without ever having to actually experience the full-blown illness.
Exactly. Vaccines work by introducing a weakened or inactive form of a virus or bacteria into the body, triggering an immune response without causing the actual disease. This allows the immune system to develop antibodies and memory cells specific to that pathogen, so if we ever encounter it again, our bodies are primed and ready to fight back, often preventing infection altogether.
It's like showing the immune system a wanted poster of the pathogen. Be on the lookout for this troublemaker.
I love that analogy. Vaccines have been incredibly successful in preventing serious and potentially deadly diseases, and they remain one of the most effective public health interventions ever developed.
Absolutely. And yet, there's still a lot of misinformation and hesitancy surrounding vaccines. Why do you think that is?
That's a complex question, and there's no easy answer. I think it's a combination of factors, including misinformation spreading online, a lack of trust in scientific institutions, and perhaps a sense of complacency, especially in parts of the world where vaccine-preventable diseases are now relatively rare.
It's like people have forgotten how devastating these diseases can be because they haven't experienced them firsthand.
Exactly. And I think it's important to remember that vaccines not only protect individuals, but also contribute to something called herd immunity.
Right. Herd immunity, that's when enough people in a population are immune to a disease that it becomes much harder for the disease to spread, even protecting those who aren't vaccinated or who have weakened immune systems.
Precisely. It's about collective responsibility and protecting the most vulnerable members of our communities.
It's like creating a shield of protection around those who need it most. So we've talked about all these amazing things our bodies do to protect us from disease. And we've discussed some practical strategies for supporting our immune systems and minimizing our risk of getting sick. But with all of this in mind, where do we go from here? What are the big picture takeaways?
That's a great question. If we step back and look at the bigger picture, I think the key takeaway is that our health is not simply a matter of luck or genetics. It's influenced by a complex interplay of factors, many of which we have the power to influence through our choices and actions.
So it's about taking ownership of our health and recognizing that we're not just passive bystanders in this whole disease landscape.
Exactly. It's about becoming informed advocates for our own well-being, making conscious choices that support our immune systems, and advocating for public health measures that protect our communities as a whole.
It's about recognizing that our health is interconnected with the health of those around us and with the health of our planet as a whole.
Precisely. It's a holistic perspective that recognizes the interconnectedness of all things when it comes to health and well-being.
This has been an incredible journey through such an important topic, and we've covered so much ground already. But before we wrap things up, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, the fact that our immune systems are constantly adapting and learning. Can you elaborate on that a bit more? What does that process of adaptation actually look like?
You're right, it is fascinating. The immune system's ability to adapt is truly remarkable. It's not a static system. It's constantly learning and refining its responses based on the encounters it has. A great example of this is something called immunological memory, which we touched upon earlier when discussing vaccines.
Right, those memory cells. It's like the immune system keeps a record of past encounters with pathogens, so if it ever encounters them again, it knows exactly what to do.
Exactly. And this memory isn't just some vague recollection, it's highly specific. Each time our bodies encounter a new pathogen, those T cells and B cells that are specifically equipped to recognize and fight off that particular invader are activated and multiply. Some of those cells then become memory cells, which stick around long term, ready to spring into action if that same pathogen ever dares to show its face again.
It's like having a team of specialized pathogen hunters on high alert, ready to mobilize at a moment's notice.
Precisely. And the beauty of this system is that it allows for a much faster and more efficient immune response upon subsequent encounters with that same pathogen. Often, the response is so rapid and effective that we don't even experience any symptoms, meaning we've developed lasting immunity.
which is one of the reasons why vaccines are so effective. By introducing a weakened or inactive form of a pathogen, vaccines essentially give our immune system a practice run, allowing it to build up that immunological memory without us having to experience the actual disease.
Exactly. It's like giving our immune systems a set of blueprints for potential invaders. Here's what this one looks like. Here's how to defeat it. And that brings us to another fascinating aspect of the immune system's adaptability, its ability to recognize and respond to an almost infinite array of potential threats.
Right, because it's not like our bodies evolved with a pre-programmed list of every single pathogen we might encounter in our lifetime. So how does the immune system manage to identify and target threats it's never seen before?
That's where things get really interesting. Our immune system relies on a remarkable system of pattern recognition. Those immune cells we've been talking about, they have receptors on their surfaces that can bind to specific molecules found on pathogens, essentially recognizing them as non-self or foreign.
So those immune cells are constantly on the lookout for anything that doesn't belong,
Yeah.
anything that's out of place.
Exactly. And what's even more remarkable is that these receptors aren't just pre-programmed to recognize a fixed number of molecules. The immune system has the ability to generate a vast diversity of receptors through a process called genetic recombination.
So it's like the immune system is constantly shuffling its genetic deck of cards, creating new and unique receptors that increase the likelihood of recognizing a wide range of potential threats.
Precisely. This diversity of receptors is what allows the immune system to recognize and respond to pathogens it's never encountered before, even those that have mutated or evolved rapidly.
It's like having an ever-evolving defense system, constantly one step ahead of the microbial world.
Exactly. And it's this incredible adaptability that makes our immune system so effective in protecting us from the constant onslaught of potential threats we face every single day.
It really is a marvel of biology. But even with this incredible defense system, we know that the battle against disease is ongoing. What are some of the challenges and areas of ongoing research when it comes to understanding and supporting our immune systems?
That's a great question, and it's important to acknowledge that as much as we've learned about the immune system, there's still so much we don't know. One of the biggest challenges is understanding how to harness the power of the immune system to treat diseases like cancer.
Right. We've been talking about the immune system in the context of infectious diseases, but it also plays a crucial role in fighting off cancer cells, which are essentially our own cells that have gone rogue and started multiplying uncontrollably.
Exactly. And there's a whole field of research dedicated to developing immunotherapies treatments that boost the body's own immune response to target and destroy cancer cells.
So instead of using external agents like chemotherapy or radiation, the goal is to train the immune system to recognize those cancer cells as dangerous and eliminate them.
Precisely. And there have been some remarkable successes in this field, with certain immunotherapies showing incredible promise in treating some types of cancer. But there are still challenges to overcome, including figuring out why some patients respond well to these therapies while others don't, and finding ways to minimize side effects.
It's like trying to fine-tune a very complex and powerful weapon. You want to make sure it's targeting the right cells and doing so with as little collateral damage as possible.
Exactly. And that's just one area of ongoing research. There's also a lot of interest in understanding how the microbiome, that vast community of microbes that live in and on our bodies, influences immune function.
Right. We've touched on the microbiome a bit, but it's important to remember that not all microbes are bad. In fact, many of them are essential for our health, including supporting a healthy immune system.
Absolutely. And research suggests that imbalances in the microbiome, what we call dysbiosis, can contribute to a range of health problems, including autoimmune diseases, allergies, and even mental health conditions.
So it's not just about understanding the immune system in isolation, it's about understanding how it interacts with this complex ecosystem of microbes that we're only just beginning to fully appreciate.
Precisely. And that interplay between our immune system, our microbiome, and our environment is a frontier of scientific exploration that holds incredible promise for understanding and treating a wide range of diseases in the future.
It's amazing to think about how much we've learned, but it's also humbling to realize how much there's still to discover. But I think that's part of what makes this field so fascinating, isn't it?
I completely agree. The pursuit of knowledge is an ongoing journey. And the more we learn about the intricacies of the human body, the more we realize how much more there is to explore.
Well, we've certainly embarked on quite the exploration today. We've journeyed through the world of diseases, those caused by external invaders, and those that arise from within. And we've delved into the remarkable workings of the immune system. that intricate and adaptable defense force that works tirelessly to keep us healthy. You've given us so much to think about. Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to leave our listener with as they continue their own exploration of this fascinating topic?
I think the most important thing to remember is that knowledge is power. The more we understand about our bodies, how they work, and what factors influence our health, the better equipped we are to make informed choices that support our well-being. So, keep asking questions, keep learning, and keep exploring.
Well said. It's been an absolute pleasure diving deep into this topic with you today. And to you, our listener, we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and empowered you to take an active role in your own health journey. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those immune systems strong.